Hello, everyone. Thank you guys all so much for joining us on this special episode today. We're going to be talking about the Super Bowl on this Monday, the day after the 57th annual Super Bowl. I'm your host, Jackie.
I'm Jack.
I'm Ivan.
I'm Kywin.
Yeah, so just for a quick introduction for all of the non-football fans listening, the Super Bowl is really just the biggest annual night in the football world. And so ranging from the immense pop culture impact to the massive logistical undertaking of the event, sports betting and everything like we talked about last episode, the Super Bowl is just a huge night. And so this year, for instance, there were a record amount of 50.4 million bettors on this game. And so I know it happened yesterday, but just out of curiosity, did you guys have any predictions or any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I personally thought the Chiefs were gonna win. I just thought Patrick Mahomes had more experience, they already have been in a they were in a previous Super Bowl. But sports betting isn't legal in California, but if it was, if I was overage, but I would place money on Kansas City.
Yeah. Ivan, Jack.
I wasn't really caught up after the 49ers lost. I've been out of it. So, but kind of didn't want the Eagles to win. So, I guess the Chiefs.
Right.
I personally prefer the Eagles to win, but I could see, for me, it could have gone either way, so I didn't really have like too much of a prediction. And although sports betting is legal in my state, I don't do it.
Right. Okay, so I mean, personally, I wanted the Eagles to win, but I had like a feeling that they weren't going to. But so just to talk about like the more business side of the Super Bowl, and just for context, like we said before, it's a huge event, and because it's such a big event, there's a lot of money going into it. And just like for baselines, we all know like football games sometimes can be pretty expensive. At the very beginning of the season, they're not that bad, or like somewhere in the middle, it's like a couple $100 depending on which game you're going to. But at the Super Bowl, it's a lot of money, and like the price of tickets is really high. I think they were like thousands of dollars, and the price of tickets actually has been rising up, and which is like really just for them to make more money. And even a lot of players themselves, like the top players are like, hey, this feels really weird. I remember last year Joe Burrow was like, oh, this feels like a party, and like it's like a dinner party, and just that doesn't feel right. So what do you guys think about that part about like the price of tickets rising?
Like specifically for the Super Bowl?
Yes.
Oh, um in general, the tickets are rising simply because there are more and more people willing to, spend more money to watch these games, but also wait, does Ticketmaster sell for NFL tickets?
I don't think so. I think Ticketmaster is more about like tours. Do
I
they?
know Ticketmaster does sell NBA tickets, right?
Or maybe they do.
Uh,
Because I
but
know they have like a thing with stadiums, so I assume they.
yeah, but
That's a good point.
basically, from what I have heard, Ticketmaster buys the tickets before from the stadium or whatever, and then they resell it by marking up the price. That's why even though that's why tickets nowadays are super expensive because they're basically already resold and gone through a huge price markup, which is kind of not fun. But even without I think without Ticketmaster, a good chunk of that price will decrease. But still, the demand for sports tickets are definitely still increasing and increasing. Um, because it's simply becoming a bigger deal nowadays, I think.
Yeah, I think Ticketmaster does, but I think a lot of it is, even if like the demand is increasing, do you think there should be like not like a cap on the price, but more so of like, okay, we know that even though this can sell for say $400, we're only going to sell it for like 300. And like not resellers, but like the actual stadiums or like the NFL themselves, or like the people in control of that original price. Because you can't control like a fan selling to a fan, right? But you
Yeah.
can control that original money going out. Do you think, or do you guys think that there should be a cap on that? Or
definitely, right? I mean, like I can see like playoff games, Super Bowl, then those tickets having a higher price for obvious reasons, right? But like regular seasons should have a cap because like maybe someone wants to go to a game and they can't because like the back highest, like the worst seat ever, still costs a good $100. And then like there's so many other ways where NFL and these sports teams earn money. The ads, like in like the stadium, they're selling food and stuff, right? Merch, those still bringing like way more profit. So I don't think tickets prices should go because like you want to kind of pay back the fans for their loyalty, right?
Hmm.
I feel like higher ticket prices might deter fans from going because for some they might just like not be able to like afford it, and then if they can't afford it, they can't even like go and like support the team they want to support. So I feel like the rising tickets, I feel like that could be a problem in the future for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think part of the reason ticket prices are rising is because of like the demand surrounding it. Like not just I think not just like ticket prices. I think everything has pretty much gone up surrounding the Super Bowl. Like um I think people are just willing to spend more. And if people are willing to spend more, then I guess the people selling the tickets would be right in moving like the ticket prices up. Like, I was like, did you guys like, how did you guys watch the game? Were you guys like watch parties at restaurants or you guys just watch it at home? Because I watched it with a couple friends and then like everybody like even during the game, like even if you're watching at home, you're still like you're still spending money on food, you're spending money on maybe like jerseys or whatnot for your supporting teams.
Hmm.
So just everything involving the Super Bowl is just involving spending more money, I think.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, personally, I was watching it with a couple of friends at home and we had like a bunch of food and we had like a lot of just like little party items. So yeah, there definitely is just a lot of money going into it. And so speaking of just a lot of money, something else in the Super Bowl that really is a big part of it is the Super Bowl advertisements. And I know a lot of well, some of my friends who aren't the biggest football people, they just kind of laugh at the ads. They watch the Super Bowl like because it's such a big event, but also the ads are something they're like, oh, that's interesting. But these advertisements obviously cost a lot of money because there's just so many people watching the program going on. And recently it was revealed that for a 30-second ad on Fox, that would cost a company $7 million. And just for like some interesting background thing, I don't know if you guys know, but there is this one beauty cosmetic brand called Elf Beauty. And so they were like mostly just marketed as this lower cost brand, but then recently they've been trying to like expand the market. But they were really viral on TikTok, but they're now like, okay, we want a bigger market than just TikTok products. And so that was kind of what they did. And so like, because they try to capitalize on the amount of people watching the Super Bowl and just the demographics are at the end of the day a little bit different from like Super Bowl and TikTok. So like just the power of these ads and potential. So what do you guys think about these ads and like the style of the ads, just the amount of money that they have to pay for it? What do you guys think?
I personally just like from watching a couple of these ads, only like a couple like really stood out to me. So I think if like all of these companies are paying pretty much like you said like 7 million
Yeah.
for each like 30-second commercial. I mean, I think a lot has to go into making the ad memorable because if it isn't, it's still only 30. You only watched it for like 30 seconds. So I'm not sure how worth it really is, but obviously these companies who are willing to pay this like ginormous amount of money, do you think it's like it's gonna help them in the long run? But I'm just not sure.
I'm gonna be honest. When I watched the Super Bowl yesterday, I was able to watch the fourth quarter because I had something going on yesterday. But when I did, like, I went to a restaurant. Like, every time like there's an ad break, I just eat. I really for me, like I don't really care too much about the advertisements. And I personally think spending I think 7 million for a 30-second ad on a Super Bowl, I feel like that's a little bit of a waste. And I know last year I mean this just hours ago, my Spanish teacher showed me an infographic. Like last year, the price I think was 6.5 million, and the year before that it was 5.5 million. So as you can see, the prices to like host an ad onto like during like the Super Bowl has like generally increased. So, yeah. So for me, like I feel like this, I don't, I feel like it's for what you get back, what those companies get back. I don't feel like it's too worth it because
Well,
people like me, because I just like breeze through the ads. I don't really
yeah,
care.
I definitely disagree with Jack here, simply because like the Super Bowl ad culture versus everything else is so different, right? Like NBA finals, like the ads aren't special. World Cup ads aren't special, but Super Bowl ads are a completely different thing, right? Because whenever we're watching Super Bowl, you watch for three things: the game, obviously, and then the concert, and then the ads. Like those are the three big things people watch the Super Bowl for, right? And then like not a lot of people who watch the Super Bowl actually care about football. Is and then they like either watch only the halftime show, but the ads are definitely one of the biggest things, and if not the most interesting things shown in Super Bowl. Like these companies are paying so much money, they're like they have to like make an impact. Like that's why they're like hiring big name actors. Like I remember like what's the chip brand called? I forgot, but like they did a Breaking Bad.
Oh,
They did a Breaking
yeah,
Bad
yeah.
reference, right? That definitely cost him a lot of money. But because it was a Breaking Bad reference, people probably be like, "Hey, I remember that chip brand," right? And then like another one, I think Squarespace hired like what's his name? Aaron Driver or something? Forgot. Um
Mhm.
yeah, and then he's like, and then it was like really well produced, really and it like it's since because the ads are so expensive, these companies invest a lot of their resources into making the ads good instead of the random ass TV ads like in the middle of nowhere, like in like middle of the night. Like those are like your basic TV ads, but Super Bowl ads make an impact. They're super funny or like super rememberable. That's why I think like that's how some kind of way it makes this market kind of special in a way.
No, I
Yeah,
think that's actually, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
so I think like one of the ads that like I think really stood out was the Tubby one, like
Oh my God.
the
Oh
one
yeah,
that
Tubby.
you
Yeah,
Yes.
think
everyone was
that
freaking out over
like
that.
sat on the remote, like it brought you like out of the brought you out of the app or something. Like
Yeah.
I think a lot of it goes into like the production of the ad, of course, because if you're spending this much money on paying for this slot in the Super Bowl, you're definitely also spending a lot of money on producing the ad as well. So if you're gonna go for it, then you're probably going all in. So I just think that's important for companies like who are willing to spend this much money because yeah, to make it memorable, it's not just that you have this slot in the Super Bowl, it's also like what that is and like how people are gonna like remember it.
Right. And just like that ad specifically for anyone who didn't watch it, it was basically the ad, and then they had the two announcers. I forgot their names, but they were just commentators on the actual Super Bowl, and like they were in the middle of saying something like football related, and then the ad itself was that like the screen was clicking out and like it was showing someone with the remote, or like the screen itself looked like someone was clicking out of the Super Bowl and changing the channel to watch something else, which is the thing that they were trying to advertise for. And that was just really memorable because obviously to a lot of sports fans, they were like, hello, that is the game I'm watching. What are you doing? Like, I can't believe you just clicked that out. And I think that was just kind of something like innovative. Because usually for a lot of the ads, it's a lot more about like, oh my God, I have this big celebrity here. Like this person is going to come, they're going to say something, we're going to make like a mini movie. But the way that they did their ad was just memorable, and the way that they really had people being like, whoa, why did you just change the channel kind of thing. And I think that's just like the culture of the Super Bowl, which is a really good point that Ivan mentioned, that like it's kind of different than other sporting sporting events, because like that's kind of just historically what's happened. And like Jack, for your point, I mean, I think that makes sense. I like a lot of people like that are probably just watching for the football, but I think because you really like football, you're watching for the football. You're not really watching for like the little antics on the side. But I think that some people are watching and the ads kind of cater to that population of people who are just watching for fun, not really for the Chiefs or the Eagles. But speaking of that, just like the little things on the side except for the actual game is the halftime show. And I know like if you're not really into like if you're only into football, your halftime show might just be like, oh, okay, cool, Rihanna, oh, and like that's it. But like a lot of the times it's a huge event, and this year Apple was the official sponsor actually. And well, almost every part of the Super Bowl is sponsored by something or somewhere. So like that's just really a lot of money going in. And so in your experience, or well, not even in your experience. So I saw this thing that said like Rihanna's brand Fenty, which is like a makeup brand, um, her business and like the searches for her business went up by like 833% because of the Super Bowl and her performance, which is a lot. So what do you guys think about that? Did you enjoy the halftime show first of all? And like what do you think the impact of that is?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty it was very interesting like seeing her like in red and all the backup dancers just in white. I think somebody on Twitter was talking about how she like it was a red blood cell and then like millions of white blood cells, but I think but like a statistic that like kind of stood out was like there were more viewers for the halftime show than there were for the actual game, apparently.
Mhm.
So like I thought like the halftime show, like I know everybody knows Rihanna, but like if it like in a way it was kind of like it's I know people like it generates so much like hype and like revenue. If there was a way like how they could like incorporate ads in a sense into this halftime show, like I don't know if they did, but like because there if there's more viewers for this halftime show than there is for the actual game, then it could like I don't know, it's just like the numbers like it's
Mhm.
like historic amount of numbers basically of people watching this, and it's like the most people have watched this halftime show than any other Super Bowl in like the past 6 years.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point about like advertising, especially because of the fact that like um so I was like a little bit busy during the halftime show, but I went back and like watched it. And so in the middle, she has a makeup brand first of all, so that's like kind of her thing right now. It's like music and makeup, but she recently has really just been focusing on the makeup company. And so in the middle, sometime somewhere, she was like she touched up her makeup with like a product and just like blended some stuff in and everything. And I think that was just like advertising in itself because like obviously you don't need to have a big giant sign that says Fenty Beauty makeup to be an advertisement. And like her just touching up her makeup in the middle is like, oh my God, go look at Fenty. Um and another interesting thing is like the halftime performers aren't really like paid a lot, or I think they're actually not paid because they're given so much like publicity that it kind of makes up for it, which is I think interesting.
Oh, I didn't know that they don't get paid actually.
Yeah.
But like
Um,
I saw a video on like why these halftime shows are super popular Super Bowls. It's because like I think it was like the 1980s or something. Like when the Super Bowl was happening, there was this massive TV show that aired in the same time, just in spite, and it like took like I think like 20 million viewers from the Super Bowl because it was like such a big TV show. And then like NFL obviously was pissed because they have like deals with the TV. What do you call it? Like Fox. They have deals with Fox
yeah.
because when you have deals with one on one, they maximize the money for each person, right? So like they're pissed obviously because you don't get as many viewers as before because some other show is leeching the viewers off of them. So they're like, okay, we're gonna keep people watching by I think the first year they invited Michael Jackson, and
Mhm.
Michael Jackson was super big, so like that started the tradition of halftime shows and like these massive artists, massive stars to keep people watching, and therefore, like Kaiwan said, like keep people watching the ads. But now since ads have gotten better, I think that's less of a concern, but it's definitely still a tradition that gets so much more viewers because of that.
Yeah. I think like to a certain point, like once you have enough of those annual big shows, it's like a culture at that point. Like it's going to be a big show. It's going to be like something huge. It's not just going to be like a fun little arena concert.
Yeah,
So I think
exactly. Like a lot of people who didn't watch football, they're like, "Hey, why is there a side of football on the Rihanna concert?" Yeah,
yeah, no,
it's definitely for some people definitely more important than the actual game.
yeah, like especially if you are a Rihanna fan. But I think interesting enough about the point of like because it gives so much publicity, they're not paid, like the performers aren't paid. And I remember the Weekend's show, there was actually a report that he spent a lot of money, like his own money, for the production of his show. So that kind of goes to show you like just the benefits of the Super Bowl and the publicity that the halftime show gives, because like they're not getting paid and they're even taking out money out of their own bank accounts to have that amazing production. So but I think at the end a lot of the artists receive like boosts in their music, like sales, so like they kind of make that money back, but it just shows like they're willing to do that. And so moving on, I know this is like a little bit of a hot topic right now for football, but because the Super Bowl is such a big event that brings in millions of dollars, do you guys think that the game is at least like a very small like degree preset? And I know there's like a lot of football into that, but just from a more business perspective, do you think that's true? Like for example, I know like things like what happened with Damar Hamlin a couple of games ago with like the Bills and Bengals, like that's completely like you can't really even plan that. Um, or if you did, that would be really bad. But you can't really plan things like that. But just to a small set, do you think it's more so like something should happen or like it should happen that way or anything like that?
I think I saw this like over Twitter where like people saying like I think it's been like blowing up. It's been trending for like a couple weeks about like people like or the NFL just following a script.
Yeah.
Like
Oh
I
yeah.
personally like don't believe so, but it's also kind of me like not wanting to believe so as a sports fan
Mhm.
because like just thinking that something could be set like that like takes the complete purpose away from sports in my opinion. So I mean, I personally don't think that it's set. It's just there's a possibility, but I just like it's like it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around, even though like the money that the NFL could probably be making is a lot more if they were to set it to even like a small degree, but I don't think so.
I mean, I feel like some people get those suspicions based on refereeing over the past few years. There were some pretty sus calls in the Super Bowl and in the some of the games before that will definitely make some people believe that something was set, but personally I don't believe it and I hope that wasn't ever the case because it's such a big event and like resetting something kind of just like ruined it.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there was like because like I'm pretty sure because of a tax loophole, the NFL registered himself like as under entertainment or something.
Yeah.
But recently they have changed back to I think sports, but I haven't done that much research on that.
Hmm. I mean, I think like obviously, just like watching football, I don't want to believe that there is like a preset thing of like, okay, this person is going at the end of this 2023 season, the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, I personally don't want to believe it because that's just like it's a lot less fun to watch if there is like a preset thing. But I think from a business perspective, it does make sense in my head that there would be something preset just because there's just so much planning, so much like stuff you have to do regarding money that like goes with the winning team or like the team that plays them and just things like that. And also I think the point of like it's not going to be interesting if it's always like if every single year it's got the Chiefs versus Eagles or like Chiefs Niners, like every single year same teams. I think that's just takes the fun out of things a little bit. So I mean, business wise, it does make sense that there might be some like setting, but just not. Yeah, I mean, I prefer not to think of that though. And then another thing I wanted to mention is that like because this year's Super Bowl was set in Arizona and like it changes every year. And for the non-football fans out there, it's not really dependent on like which team has like the higher ranking as like many playoff games are. It's just like preset. It doesn't matter if like Kansas City is going to be playing there. It's just set. And then there's like reports about how it doesn't actually yield a net increase in tourism. So like for example, in Arizona, regular tourists that would go there, like non-Super Bowl related, like who would go there for hiking, would actually try to avoid Arizona because of that massive event happening. And I was just curious, like, what did you guys think of that? Because there are reports that like just the net amount of tourists like that actually cancels itself out. But what do you guys think of like obviously a bunch of cities are still like vying to host it, so there must be some benefit in hosting it, right? So what did you guys think?
Because I think even if like the net amount of tourists is canceling themselves out, people who come for the Super Bowl are going to spend more money than a traditional tourist who's just there for vacation purposes, I guess. I mean, if you're going all the way to that city to watch the Super Bowl, I'm assuming you have a lot of money because those tickets, like as we discussed, they aren't cheap. And you're going there to watch a major sports event. You're going to spend money on food. You're going to spend money on the jerseys, merchandise. You're gonna be basically splurging for this trip. So that's just what I think.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Like for a Super Bowl, like a certain percentage is given to like family members of teams and like teams themselves. So like um that Super Bowl event just brings a lot more richer tourists. I guess that's how you can put it. But like tourists who are willing to spend a lot of money. Like I'm pretty sure Elon Musk was also at the Super Bowl, and like Mr. Beast, like these massive content creators, millionaires, they're all there for Super Bowl, and therefore I think even though there might be like not a change in the amount of tourists, but definitely a change in the net income of the tourists.
Yeah, I mean, not just like net income, but like however it's spent, and like it definitely like boosts the economy of like the area a little bit, the tourism industry there for like a short amount of time. Like just to add on to the list of celebrities that were also there. LeBron was there. Beyonce and Jay-Z were next to each other, and there were some other like, really popular people that were just there. So you can see like the Super Bowl is going to attract like a lot of people to like it motivates people to spend more, keep this as like a memorable event, and therefore like it will temporarily like bring up the tourism industry and like bring up like the net income and net spend of in that during that time.
Right, yeah, just like I remember we talked about this in a previous episode too. Like it just like going to the Super Bowl, you like you're going to the Super Bowl. You're not just there for funsies and then like on the side you're like, "Oh, look at this football game." Haha. Like you're going there. That's like your basically your main purpose. And I think like that kind of creates the mindset of like, okay, I'm on vacation. I'm like going to relax. I'm going to spend a little bit of money on things I normally may not have wanted to do. Like obviously celebrities might not think that way, but like for upper middle upper class people, like that might be the mindset. Like people who just do have a budget, although it might be like significantly larger, like that's kind of the mindset. And I think that's really interesting because like the tourism, not maybe like not the number of people but just the amount that they spend, and also like the name recognition. Like obviously Arizona, that's like a big city, or that's like a big place, a big state. But like everyone knows it, but it's still like, oh, that was like the place that hosted the Super Bowl. And like there is that thing of name recognition of, oh, wow, they hosted the Super Bowl, that's so cool, and just kind of boosting themselves up. But I think like as a whole, just the Super Bowl as the big event has just so much going on. And I think it's a good idea to like wrap up here and just talk about a little bit about the culture of the Super Bowl and just how much money it brings in. Like it's like we said, it's really just the biggest night in the football world, and kind of the entire season culminates to have that game. And there's just so much logistics and so much money going in from like the fans, from the performers, from like the actual organizers. There's just a lot of money in and out. And I think my takeaway from this is just that like historically, culture and developing that culture is so important, because like if you didn't have that culture of, for example, watching the halftime show, you might be able to get away with like inviting some very little known artist and people would be like, okay, I don't really care. Like there's no point in watching it. You're just watching for the game. But because that culture of that business has developed so much for ads, halftime, and like little things around the game that isn't football related, that's like really important.
Yeah, my takeaway, definitely agreeing with Jackie on many of the points. Like these, so the event of the Super Bowl, it's so different from other sports events. Like other sports events, like soccer stuff, like ads. It's so super obvious that they bring in money. It's a big deal, but in the Super Bowl, like it's just a completely different setting. Like there's so much more effort put in to earn more money. Like the ads are so much more impactful during the Super Bowl than in other sports events such as like the NBA Finals or the World Cup.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I definitely echo those points. Feel like today my biggest takeaway is like I like recognize like the sheer like influence of advertisements on like Super Bowl culture is unprecedented. It's not like it's like not seen in like any other event that we've like seen. And like also another big like takeaway is that I feel like what we just talked about like tourism, like the Super Bowl, like for like the area that is hosting, it will like temporarily bring up like it will bring up like the amount of spending that tourists like spend because they obviously want to remember this memorable event and say, oh hey, I was there. And even though the statistics said like the general amount of tourists that come even before and like during the Super Bowl is like the same, I feel like there's definitely a big like impact to the economy based on this spending.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. One of my takeaways was also like in terms of consumer spending, like year after year, it's always gonna keep on going up, and that also matches in the fact that like for a Super Bowl ad, that number this year is 7 million. I know like each year it has been increasing, and each year it's gonna keep on increasing just because of the pure demand that it has. Like that every company knows what a Super Bowl ad is gonna bring them, and like it's like I'm pretty sure not all companies are able to get a Super Bowl ad that want one. So it's just like this event is such a big thing that like it's completely different from like other sports events and like the effect and like the reach that it truly has. So yeah, the sheer amount of consumer spending is one of the biggest key takeaways.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think it's just like so big and like the culture of it is so massive now. And so like thank you guys all for tuning in today as we talk about the Super Bowl effects, the culture of it, and just the business side of it. So we're looking forward to seeing you all next time as we continue our journey at Teens for Business. Thank you.